Now with the social media firestorm, a woman calling the police about an 8-year-old girl selling bottled water.
So we have another story to tell you about. A white woman who called police because a black man was wearing socks in a swimming pool has now been
Outrage at Yale University, a black graduate student, after she fell asleep in a common room of her dorm, and then the police were called.
Those are just 3 of many headlines highlighting the racial tension between black and white Americans. I sat down with Brianna, a Northwestern student, to talk about what it's like to be a black woman in America in 2018.
Yeah, my favorite story was a black grad student, I believe at the University of Columbia. She was taking a nap on the couch. And so someone called the police on her to investigate why she was there, and turns out she was a student there. Why did you call the police? Like, do you just not expect black people to be in a higher institution?
It's really sad to think of this idea of your race or your skin tone intimidating people.
Yeah.
And that being the sole factor why they call the police. Because it's you know that if that girl at Columbia was white,
she wouldn't have even done a double take.
She wouldn't have done a double take.
It doesn't matter how educated you are, what your social status, or whatever, they're still gonna see you as a black body.
Yet seeing racial profiling in the news isn't a far off tale for Brianna. Brianna grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, and she has her own story of when she was racially profiled at the age of only 8 years old.
I was walking home from school, and my best friend who lives across the street, she's white, and normally she walks home with me, but she wasn't home because she's sick. So I went to her house to try to see if she felt better, but their doors locked obviously, and she's in bed. So I was looking in her garden for a key that I always used to get into her house because I've known her all my life. And then I opened the door, went inside. And then later, next thing I know is 2 or 3 cops outside the house banging on the door telling me to come out. And then they ended up coming in without a warrant. I might add. I had to explain to them no, she's not in any danger. She's my friend, and why would a middle schooler break into a house to steal something? Why? I live across the street from her. I've lived in that neighborhood my whole life. Still live there. It's just who did that? Because all my neighbors have lived there for some time, and I have a good relationship with them. So I'm just walks outside because we don't have sidewalks. So I'm just
So you think it was one of your neighbors then?
Yeah, because it's just who else would be in proximity? Yeah. My dad, my mom, and one of my older brothers and I ended up eating dinner at the Cambridge's house. That friend I went over to, and her dad jokingly brought up yeah, they must have just thought you just didn't live here in this neighborhood, or that you were just one of those juvenile delinquent kids. And I'm just my dad was just why did they assume that? And then her dad just kind of did this because I trailed off, and I didn't really understand at that time what that meant.
But now, at the age of 19, Brianna knows exactly what he meant. And even after 11 years, not much has changed.
You're just even walking in my neighborhood that I lived there the entire time, sometimes you just get looks, or cars slow down, and it's just yikes. that feeling of oh, you don't belong here, or just what are you doing here? You look suspicious, or you look intimidating. I'm just a black woman walking down the road. There's people in the world who don't think that. Have to think of what does their skin tone translate into people's minds. And it sucks. I think I'm hyper aware of what it looks like I'm doing. If my dog veers off into someone's lawn, does it look like I'm going to break in their house? I'm very hyper aware of that.
In her childhood, not only did Brianna deal with racial profiling, but she also had an experience with blatant racism, something that really affected her at the time.
I was in a Walmart, and I was just waiting in the line for self-checkout. I was just 16-year-old me, just standing there on my phone like a normal millennial. And then one of the self-checkout lines open, what has been open for a while. And so the guy behind me was hey, inward. It's open, go. But how do you defend against someone calling you a derogatory term. Like, if someone tells you you're dumb, you'd be like, well, I took AP classes and I'm in college now, and I'm like, F you. But he decided to call out my race, which it's not anything I did or anything like I said. It's like something I have no control over.
Did you tell your mom when you got in the car?
No, because like my mom would have like went inside and like raised hell, and being me being me, I just like want to leave and I'll cry about it later.
So it really hurt you?
Yeah, like I don't know. I used to be one of those people like it's just a word. Like I didn't want to like give meaning to that word, but like I knew what he meant, and he meant it as like a derogatory racial slur. So it's like just the meaning and like the context itself was enough. Like,
with being a minority comes racial stereotypes, and for Brianna, it's been a day-to-day fight to dispel Black stereotypes. A lot of my life, I felt like I could like run away from like the image of like being Black by being like super smart and like super involved, and like when you're on the street, a person looking out their car window or someone looking out their house doesn't know you go to Northwestern.
Yeah. That stuff shouldn't matter though, but
it
somehow does. It's kind of like always tied to being more white, but then having like a Black exterior, or being like you're so white, or like you talk so white, or just like a backhanded compliment. No matter how far you get in life, it's like you're still Black, and it's like, why do you see Black as like a handicap?
How do you think this like next to like, our campus, like Northwestern?
I think what we have at Northwestern is maybe willful ignorance and definitely not allocating funds to their organization, but like still having like the title of diversity and inclusion all over the place. This year, our ski team hosted their annual party where they dress up in cultural costumes, or well, they call it costumes, but it's cultural attire. And this year, people took pictures, and a lot of them featured blackface and like traditional Native American wear and other. But like when they decided to write about it, and either I forgot what publisher it was, or on Facebook, the photos they like blacked out the faces and like redacted any names, which I find very like protective, because like you wouldn't have done that if they weren't white.
That's the thing too that
you should be able to know who these people are, who are your neighbors, who we're studying with.
Along with racial and cultural insensitivity popping up at Northwestern's events, it's also popping up on a Facebook page, NU Crushes and Confessions. A consistent post that has come up is centered around race, and in a way highlights the ignorance that stains Northwestern's campus.
Also, I've seen a couple posts that are very like, they're like, I don't mean to be derogatory, but like I have my Tinder set for like 2 miles within Northwestern's campus, and yeah, it just seems like I haven't seen many like attractive people or women of color. I'm just like, there are very gorgeous people of color. Like, what? Where are you looking? And two, like, there's plenty of like average to like not so cute white people, but for some reason they don't stand up. Like, you don't be like, oh, there's very few cute white girls, but it's like you decide to lump all women of color as like not attractive. Like, have you seen every single one of us? Like, what are you looking for? Straight hair and blue eyes?
After dissecting race in America and race on Northwestern's campus, I couldn't help but feel like race in America right now seems pretty bleak. So I had to ask Brianna, how does she think race will function in America's future?
I can see it maybe going towards a more liberal thing. We're going to see more marginalized groups in office. However, the Black Panther Party called it having black faces in high places. That was their first initiative, but like, as with President Obama, that doesn't have a lasting change. So, like, honestly, the police, until like we somehow get a handle on like police brutality, because like that's the thing that keeps like stroking these flames. I feel like if we don't lessen the gap of disparity between people of color and white people, like nothing will change. Because like, if we can't give people the tools they need to succeed, they're not going to succeed. Because like, one, schools are crap, especially all black schools or all minority schools. Also, the freaking high incarceration rate, the unemployment rate. Like, if people are imprisoned, without a job and without
And
education.
when they get out, they're basically set up for failure.
Like, the black family is, like, in disarray.